Pick up that tray, contractor. Or do civilian women need instructions for everything? Lieutenant Commander Bryce Kellner stood in the center of the DFAC, his voice carrying across 250 Navy SEALs eating their midday meal. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of grilled chicken and industrial coffee hung thick in the recycled air. Conversations died at nearby tables. Forks paused mid-bite. Astra Lennox held her own tray steady. 30 years old. Brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Standard contractor badge clipped to her gray polo shirt. Technical support personnel, the badge read. Temporary assignment. She had been walking toward an empty table near the back wall when Kellner stepped into her path, 6 feet tall. Broad shoulders straining against his Navy working uniform, the kind of officer who measured his worth by how many people flinched when he spoke. I asked you a question. Kellner tilted his head, a thin smile pulling at his lips. The officer's table needs another tray of water bottles. Since you're already carrying something, might as well make yourself useful. 73 SEALs sat within direct earshot. Another 180 could see the confrontation from their positions throughout the dining facility. The DFAC at Naval Special Warfare Command was never quiet during lunch hour, but right now, silence spread like a pressure wave. Astra met his gaze. Her expression remained neutral, not defiant, not submissive, simply present. I'm on break, she said. The galley staff can assist you. Something flickered behind Kellner's eyes, a twitch at the corner of his jaw. Officers like him built their authority on instant compliance. Hesitation was tolerable, questions were manageable, but flat refusal from a civilian contractor, a woman no less, in front of his peers, unacceptable. On break. He repeated the words slowly, tasting them like something spoiled. Contractors don't get breaks. Contractors get assignments, and right now, your assignment is to serve that table. He pointed toward a cluster of 4 officers near the window. Lieutenant Derek Holt sat among them, watching with undisguised amusement. Petty Officer Wade Sutter occupied the adjacent table, his eyes darting between Kellner and Astra like a spectator at a blood sport. Astra remained still. Her fingers adjusted slightly on the tray, a minor shift in grip that most observers would dismiss as nervousness. At a table near the far wall, Master Chief Roy Donovan lowered his coffee cup. 28 years in the Navy, 3 combat deployments, countless young operators trained under his supervision. He had seen nervous civilians before. He had seen scared contractors. He had seen people freeze under pressure. This woman was none of those things. Her grip on that tray was tactical, thumbs positioned for rapid release, weight balanced on the balls of her feet, shoulders loose but ready. Donovan narrowed his eyes. Kellner took one step closer, close enough that Astra could smell the coffee on his breath. Let me make this simple for you. His voice dropped to a register meant to intimidate, meant to remind her of every advantage he held in this room. Rank, gender, numbers. You exist here because we allow it. You eat here because we tolerate it. And when an officer gives you a direct instruction, you follow it. That's how the real world works. Astra inhaled through her nose, held for 4 counts, exhaled through her mouth. 4 counts again. I'm not military personnel, she said quietly. I'm not under your command. You're on my base. Kellner's smile widened. Everything on this base is under my command. Lieutenant Holt stood from his table, drawn toward the confrontation like a shark sensing blood. He was younger than Kellner, early 30s, with the kind of calculated cruelty that thrived in hierarchical environments. Where Kellner used rank as a weapon, Holt preferred social pressure. The whispered rumor. The public humiliation. The slow erosion of dignity through 1,000 small cuts. Problem here, sir? Holt positioned himself at Kellner's shoulder, completing the formation. 2 officers, 1 contractor, an audience of 250. No problem. Kellner kept his eyes locked on Astra. Our technical support specialist was just learning her place. Ah. Holt nodded slowly, surveying Astra from head to toe. The one from the equipment room. Heard she's been asking questions about the training schedules, poking around where civilians shouldn't poke. Is that so? Kellner raised an eyebrow. Curious behavior for someone who fixes computers. Astra said nothing. Her silence seemed to irritate Kellner more than any response could have. He reached out and placed his palm flat against her tray. Here's what's going to happen. He pushed down, forcing the tray toward the floor. You're going to set this down. You're going to walk to the galley. You're going to bring water bottles to my colleagues, and then you're going to thank me for giving you something productive to do." The tray tilted. Her meal began to slide. Astra released her grip. The tray clattered against the linoleum. Grilled chicken scattered across polished boots. A water bottle rolled under the nearest table. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent DFAC like a gunshot. Kellner looked down at his splattered uniform. His face flushed red. "You clumsy!" He caught himself, composed his expression. "Pick it up." Astra crouched down. She began gathering the scattered items, her movements measured and precise. No fumbling, no haste, just efficient collection of debris. But as she reached for the fallen tray, something changed in the quality of attention from Master Chief Donovan's table. He leaned forward slightly. His coffee sat forgotten. Because the way this woman moved, the angle of her spine, the controlled extension of her limbs, the way her eyes never stopped scanning the room even while appearing focused on the floor, that was not civilian body language. That was muscle memory drilled through years of operational training. Donovan had seen that posture before. In operators, in spec ops personnel, in the quiet professionals who moved through the world's most dangerous spaces and came back with stories they could never tell. He said nothing, but he watched. Astra straightened, tray in hand. Food ruined. Dignity intact. "There," Kellner said, satisfaction dripping from every syllable. "That's where you belong, on your knees, cleaning up messes, just like every other civilian who wanders into places they don't understand." He turned to address the watching SEALs. "Let this be a reminder. Standards exist for a reason. The moment we let people forget their place, discipline collapses." Scattered murmurs of agreement rippled through certain tables. Not universal approval. Many operators looked uncomfortable, exchanging glances that spoke of professional embarrassment, but enough validation to fuel Kellner's performance. Holt clapped slowly, 3 deliberate beats. "Well said, sir, though I have to wonder." He stepped closer to Astra, his voice carrying just far enough for nearby tables to hear. "Why does a technical contractor need access to the equipment storage anyway? Those servers contain training schedules, deployment rotations, information that's way above her clearance level." Astra deposited the tray on an empty table. She did not respond to the accusation. "No answer?" Holt pressed. "Interesting. Very interesting. If you're as hooked as I am wondering how this plays out, do me a favor and hit subscribe. We're just getting started, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment too and tell me what you think Astra's hiding." Petty Officer Sutter rose from his seat, moving with the casual confidence of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. He had served under Kellner for 18 months, long enough to understand the game, long enough to become useful in ways that never appeared in official records. "Sir," he said, approaching the group with a carefully rehearsed expression of concern, "if she's been accessing restricted areas, shouldn't we document this for security purposes?" Kellner nodded gravely. "Excellent point, Petty Officer. We take information security very seriously around here." The trap was closing. Astra could see it in the synchronized movements, the too casual positioning, the way Sutter kept one hand near his pocket. This was not spontaneous confrontation. This was choreography. "I haven't accessed any restricted systems," she said evenly. "My credentials are limited to maintenance servers in Building 7. "That's not what I heard." Holt pulled out his phone, making a show of scrolling through messages. "Got a report this morning. Someone matching your description was seen in the equipment storage area on Level 2, right around 0430, before the regular staff arrived. I wasn't there." "Can you prove that?" Silence stretched between them. In the watching crowd, opinions divided along invisible lines. Some operators shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the mechanics of a setup. Others leaned in, eager for entertainment. Chief Warrant Officer Neil Pratt approached from the senior enlisted section. Mid-40s. Permanent scowl etched into weathered features. The kind of man who had built his career on suspicion and survived by trusting no one outside his immediate circle. "What's the situation?" He directed the question at Kellner, ignoring Astra entirely. "Potential security breach, Chief." Kellner kept his tone professional now, the earlier mockery replaced by studied concern. "This contractor may have accessed classified training materials without authorization." Pratt turned his scrutiny toward Astra. His eyes moved across her face, her posture, her hands, looking for tells, looking for weakness. "Contractors don't belong in secure areas," he said flatly. Period. If she was there, that's a violation. If she wasn't, she needs to account for her whereabouts during the time in question. I was in my quarters. Astra's voice remained level. Alone. No witnesses then. Pratt's scowl deepened. Convenient. Sutter chose that moment to stumble. His shoulder bumped against Astra's arm, a contact so brief it could have been accidental. In the same motion, his hand brushed past her jacket pocket. She felt the weight immediately. Something small and metallic pressed into the fabric. Her pupils contracted slightly. The only visible reaction, she understood now, not just harassment, evidence planting. A frame within a frame. I think we should search her. Sutter stepped back, his expression arranged into helpful concern. Just to be safe. If there's nothing to hide, she won't mind. Kellner pretended to consider this. That seems reasonable, Chief? Pratt nodded. Standard security protocol. If a civilian is suspected of unauthorized access, we have the right to conduct a search. This is harassment. Astra kept her hands visible, palms open. I'm filing a formal complaint. File whatever you want. Kellner's smile returned, sharper now. After the search. He reached for his radio. MP Station, this is Lieutenant Commander Kellner at DFAC North, requesting 2 officers for a security search of civilian personnel. Priority routine. The radio crackled acknowledgement. 2 minutes out. Astra calculated options. 250 witnesses. 4 hostile officers. Unknown number of sympathizers versus skeptics in the crowd. Physical resistance would confirm their narrative of guilt. Compliance would allow them to find planted evidence. Neither path led anywhere good. At his table, seaman apprentice Theo Vance gripped his fork hard enough to bend the plastic. 22 years old, 3 months into his first assignment, too junior to speak, too decent to stay silent. He had seen it. The bump, the hand movement, the way Sutter's fingers dipped and emerged just a fraction heavier. Vance opened his mouth. The SEAL beside him, a veteran with 11 years of service, placed one hand on his arm, shook his head once. The message clear. Not your fight. Not your career to risk. Vance closed his mouth. His jaw clenched. 2 military police officers entered the DFAC, specialist ranks, young but professional. They approached Kellner with appropriate deference. Sir, you called for a security search? This contractor, Kellner gestured toward Astra, suspected of unauthorized access to classified materials. Need you to conduct a standard search. The MPs exchanged a brief glance. Protocol was protocol. They had no authority to question an officer's request. Ma'am, the first MP addressed Astra directly, please extend your arms. This will only take a moment. Astra complied. Arms out, palms up, posture radiating cooperation. The second MP began the pat-down. Professional, by the book. Starting at the shoulders, moving down the torso. He stopped at her jacket pocket. There's something here. Kellner's expression shifted into theatrical concern. What is it? The MP reached in. His fingers emerged holding a small component. Black metal housing, green circuit board visible through transparent casing. The kind of specialized electronics that appeared on classified inventory lists. Looks like a signal processor module. The MP turned it over, checking for markings. These are restricted items, Building 7 equipment storage. Murmurs erupted throughout the DFAC. Accusations became confirmation. Suspicion became certainty. The narrative solidified in real time across 250 minds. Well, Kellner's voice carried righteous vindication. It seems our concerns were justified. Astra stared at the component. Her face betrayed nothing. That's not mine. It was in your pocket. Holt stepped forward, positioning himself for maximum visibility. In your pocket, in a secure military facility, with your hands caught in the cookie jar. Someone put it there. Of course. Kellner nodded with exaggerated sympathy. Someone else, always someone else. Never accountability, never personal responsibility. This is exactly the problem with civilians in operational environments. Chief Pratt moved to flank Astra's opposite side. I'm recommending immediate detention pending investigation. If she's been stealing classified equipment, who knows what else she's compromised. Agreed. Kellner reached for Astra's wrist. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. His fingers closed around her forearm. And Master Chief Donovan stood. The movement drew attention. Donovan rarely stood during meals, rarely inserted himself into drama. His reputation was built on quiet competence, not public confrontation. But he was standing now, walking toward the group with measured steps, his coffee cup left behind on the table. "Hold on," his voice carried natural authority. 28 years of service compressed into 2 words. Kellner's grip loosened slightly. "Master Chief, is there a problem?" "Maybe." Donovan stopped 3 feet from the group, his eyes fixed on Astra, not accusatory, evaluating. "Before we drag a civilian into custody based on a pocket search, I'd like to understand the chain of events." "The chain of events is clear." Pratt crossed his arms. "She was in restricted areas. We found restricted equipment on her person, open and shut." "Was she observed in restricted areas? Directly observed?" Silence. "Lieutenant Holt mentioned a report," Kellner said carefully. "Someone matching her description." "Someone matching." Donovan repeated the words slowly. "Not positive identification, not security footage, someone matching." "The evidence is in her pocket, Master Chief." Holt's tone carried an edge of impatience. "What more do you need?" Donovan ignored him. He continued watching Astra, watching the way she held herself under pressure. The absolute stillness of someone who had learned to control physiological responses in situations far more intense than a dining facility confrontation. "What's your full name?" he asked her directly. "Astra Lennox." "Your position?" "Technical support contractor, temporary assignment." "How long have you been on base?" 11 days. Donovan processed this information. 11 days. A technical contractor. No history of security violations according to the usual channels. And yet she stood in the center of a manufactured crisis with the composure of a veteran interrogation subject. "Master Chief," Kellner's patience frayed visibly. "With respect, this isn't your jurisdiction. I've already requested MP involvement. The proper protocols are being followed." "Protocols?" Donovan finally turned his attention to Kellner. "Yes. Let's talk about protocols. Did you follow protocol when you ordered her to serve your table?" "Excuse me?" "I was sitting right there." Donovan pointed toward his abandoned coffee cup. "Clear line of sight. I saw you block her path. I heard you demand she perform service duties outside her contract specifications. I watched you deliberately cause her meal to fall." The temperature in the room shifted. Operators who had been passively watching now reassessed the situation. Context changed everything. "That's..." Kellner searched for footing. "That was a misunderstanding. She was disrespectful." "She declined a request outside her job description. That's not disrespect. That's boundary setting." "Master Chief, I don't see how this is relevant to the security issue at hand." "It's relevant because it establishes pattern." Donovan stepped closer. Not threatening, just present. "A civilian contractor refuses to be humiliated. Suddenly she's accused of espionage. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" Lieutenant Holt laughed nervously. "Are you suggesting we planted evidence? That's absurd." "I'm suggesting we verify before we vilify." Donovan looked at the MPs. "Has anyone checked the access logs, security cameras, actual forensic confirmation that this woman was in the areas she's accused of entering?" The MPs exchanged uncertain glances. "Sir, we were just called to conduct a search. We don't have access to that information." "Then maybe we should get it. Before we destroy a civilian's career based on speculation and pocket contents." Kellner's face reddened. "This is obstruction. This is due process." Donovan met his glare without flinching. "Something we claim to defend." The standoff crystallized. 2 senior personnel with vastly different agendas, an audience of 250 waiting to see which narrative would prevail. Astra remained motionless at the center. Her breathing stayed controlled. Her expression remained neutral. But behind her eyes, calculations ran at rapid speed. She had prepared for discovery. She had not prepared for defenders. Chief Pratt broke the tension. "Fine. We'll check the logs. But she stays here until we confirm her whereabouts. If the story doesn't match, we proceed with detention." "Fair enough." Donovan nodded once. "Someone pull the access records for Building 7 equipment storage. Timestamp 0430 this morning. Let's see what the data actually shows." An operator at a nearby table stood, Petty Officer 2nd Class, communications specialist based on his badge. "I can pull that from the security terminal in the admin office, 5 minutes." "Do it." The operator hurried out. The DFIC held its breath. Kellner leaned close to Astra, lowering his voice to a register only she could hear. It doesn't matter what the logs show. We'll find something. We always find something. People like you don't survive places like this. Astra turned her head slightly, met his eyes. People like me, she said quietly, built places like this. Something flickered in Kellner's expression. Confusion? Recognition? He pulled back, unsettled without understanding why. The minutes stretched. Operators finished meals they no longer tasted. Conversations resumed in hushed fragments. Theories circulated through whispered networks. Seaman Vance remained frozen at his table, the image burned in his mind, Sutter's hand dipping toward her pocket, the deliberate brush disguised as accident. He knew what he had seen. He knew what it meant. But speaking meant confronting officers, contradicting authority, risking everything he had worked for over a single moment of witnessed injustice. Drop a comment. What would you do if you saw someone being framed? Would you speak up or protect yourself? I genuinely want to know. And if you're enjoying this story, that subscribe button really helps the channel grow. The communications specialist returned. His face carried the expression of someone holding volatile information. I pulled the logs. He approached Donovan, deliberately bypassing Kellner. Building 7 equipment storage, 0430 to 0600. And 3 personnel accessed that area during the time frame. The specialist consulted his tablet. Petty Officer Wade Sutter at 0442, Lieutenant Derek Holt at 0515, and Chief Warrant Officer Pratt at 0531. Silence crashed through the DFAC. Donovan turned slowly toward the 3 named individuals. Interesting. No contractor access logged, but 3 personnel who are currently accusing her were present during the exact window in question. Kellner's jaw tightened. There must be an error. She could have piggybacked, followed someone through a door. With what credentials? Donovan gestured toward Astra's badge. Contractor cards don't open secure storage areas. The system would have logged any attempt. There's nothing. Then she found another way in. Or she was never there. Donovan let the statement hang. And someone who was there planted that component to create a convenient scapegoat. The accusation landed like a grenade. Operators throughout the DFAC began reassessing positions. The narrative that had seemed so clear moments ago now fractured into competing possibilities. Lieutenant Holt stepped forward, aggression masking uncertainty. This is character assassination. We're commissioned officers. Our word carries weight. Weight that should be verified by evidence. Donovan did not retreat. Right now, the only evidence we have points at you, not her. This is ridiculous. Pratt's composure finally cracked. We're being interrogated based on the word of a civilian and some access logs. I've served 23 years. My record speaks for itself. Records can be manufactured. The words came from Astra. Every head turned. She had not spoken during the entire exchange of evidence, had not defended herself beyond initial denials. Now she stood with quiet certainty, as though the chaos around her was merely background noise to a larger operation. What did you say? Kellner's voice dropped to dangerous registers. Records can be manufactured. Astra met his gaze steadily. Accusations can be coordinated, evidence can be planted, but the truth has a way of surfacing, usually when the people hiding it feel most secure. Is that a threat? It's an observation. Kellner moved toward her. 2 steps. 3. His hand raised, not quite a fist, but close. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Astra did not step back. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. The words carried weight that exceeded their content. Donovan heard it. A few senior operators heard it. Something beneath the surface. Something waiting. One of the MPs cleared his throat. Sir, given the conflicting evidence, I'm not comfortable proceeding with detention without further investigation. We should escalate this to the security officer. I am the senior officer present. Kellner did not break eye contact with Astra. I'm making the call. With respect, sir, detaining a civilian without clear evidence could create liability issues. If the logs don't support the accusation, and she files a complaint, let her file. Sir. The second MP joined his colleague. We need to document this properly. If you want to proceed, we'll need your authorization in writing, with witnesses. Kellner hesitated. Written authorization meant accountability. Paper trails meant exposure. If the frame collapsed under scrutiny, his signature would be the anchor dragging him down. Fine. He stepped back. She's confined to quarters pending investigation. No access to any facility beyond her assigned building. MPs will escort her. That's outside protocol for contractor personnel, Donovan interjected. You don't have authority to confine civilians without base commander approval. Then I'll get approval. Captain Ashford is off base until 1400. You'll have to wait. Kellner's frustration boiled visibly beneath his professional mask. Every obstacle, every delay, every procedural technicality that prevented him from eliminating the problem standing in front of him. Astra watched his struggle with detached interest, like a scientist observing a predictable reaction in a controlled experiment. I'll wait in my quarters, she offered, voluntarily. No need for escort or formal confinement. When Captain Ashford returns, I'll make myself available for questioning. The offer was tactically perfect. Cooperation without capitulation, compliance without admission. Donovan almost smiled. That's acceptable. Kellner managed the words through clenched teeth. But if you're not there when the investigation proceeds, it'll be treated as evidence of guilt. Understood. Astra turned and walked toward the DFAC exit. 250 pairs of eyes followed her movement. Straight spine, measured steps, no hurry, no fear. She passed Seaman Vance's table without acknowledgement. But in the brief moment when her angle blocked her face from officer view, she gave him the smallest nod, a recognition, a message. Then she was through the doors and gone. The DFAS erupted in murmured speculation. Operators clustered in groups, dissecting every detail. Opinions fragmented along predictable lines. Loyalty to officers versus suspicion of convenient accusations. Career preservation versus abstract principles of fairness. Kellner watched the exit where Astra had disappeared. His expression suggested unfinished business, interrupted agenda, plans requiring revision. This isn't over, he said quietly to Holt. Not by a long shot, Holt agreed. She knows something. Did you see the way she looked at us? I saw it. We need to move faster, before Ashford gets back. Kellner nodded slowly. Get Sutter. Meet me at Building 7 in 30 minutes. If she won't give us a reason to remove her, we'll create one. The three officers dispersed through separate exits. Professional distance maintained. Collaboration invisible to casual observers. Master Chief Donovan remained at his table. His coffee had long gone cold. His appetite had evaporated. But his attention stayed fixed on the empty space where Astra Lennox had stood. 28 years of service had taught him to recognize the unusual. The misplaced detail, the behavior that didn't match the cover story, technical support contractor, temporary assignment, 11 days on base. But she had responded to threat like someone who had faced much worse. She had processed information like someone trained to operate in hostile environments. She had controlled her physiological responses like someone who had undergone resistance training. Donovan pulled out his phone, scrolled through old contacts, found a number he had not called in 4 years. He typed a brief message. Need background check on civilian contractor. Name, Astra Lennox. Something doesn't add up. Send. He pocketed the phone and stood. The investigation was no longer about a planted component. It was about identity, about the gap between what appeared and what existed. And Donovan had a feeling that gap was about to crack wide open. Outside the DFAC, Astra Lennox walked the covered pathway toward Building 7. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the concrete. The California air carried salt from the distant Pacific. She did not look back at the dining facility, did not check for surveillance, did not alter her pace or demeanor. 11 days. That was how long she had maintained cover. 11 days of serving coffee, fixing printers, submitting reports that said exactly nothing while observing everything. 11 days of letting Lieutenant Commander Bryce Kellner reveal his connections, his patterns, his vulnerabilities. The planted component was unexpected. Accelerated timeline, but not unmanageable. She had come to this base with a mission that began 4 years ago in a desert compound 8,000 miles away, a mission that ended with 9 bodies and 1 survivor. Astra reached into her pocket, not the one that had held the planted evidence, the other side. Her fingers closed around cold metal, a challenge coin, unmarked on the surface. But the serial number etched into its rim corresponded to exactly 1 entry in a classified database. Shadow 6. Disavowed. Non-existent. She had worn their contempt like armor for 11 days. Let them mock, let them underestimate, let them feel so secure in their superiority that they stopped watching their own vulnerabilities. The man who betrayed her unit was on this base. The evidence she needed was within reach, and the officers who had just tried to frame her had no idea they were performing exactly according to plan. Astra allowed herself one small smile, brief, private, gone before anyone could witness. Then she entered Building 7, closed the door behind her, and began preparing for the next phase. The hunt was not over. It was just beginning. In the DFACS, Seaman Vance stared at his untouched food, the image replayed in his mind. Sutter's hand, the planted evidence, the accusation that had nearly destroyed an innocent woman. He had seen it. He knew the truth. And he had said nothing. The veteran beside him clapped his shoulder. "You made the right call, kid. Getting involved in officer business is career suicide. Whatever's happening there, it's above your pay grade." Vance nodded mechanically, but the words felt hollow. The justification felt thin. He had joined the Navy to serve something larger than himself, to stand for principles that mattered, to be part of something honorable. Today, he had watched injustice unfold and chosen self-preservation over integrity. The food tasted like ash. The uniform felt heavier than it had that morning. Somewhere in this base, a woman he did not know was being hunted by men who had already demonstrated their willingness to fabricate evidence, and he held information that could help her. Vance pushed his tray away, stood, walked toward the exit. He did not know what he would do next, did not know if courage would outweigh fear when the moment came. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. This story was not finished, not even close. The afternoon shadows lengthened across Naval Special Warfare Command. In Building 7, Astra Lennox reviewed encrypted files on a hidden partition of her personal device. In the officers' quarters, Kellner coordinated with Holt and Sutter for their next move. In the communications center, Master Chief Donovan waited for a response to his background inquiry. And in a junior enlisted barracks, Seaman Apprentice Theo Vance sat on his bunk, holding his phone, trying to decide whether truth was worth the cost of speaking it. The pieces were in motion. The players had revealed their positions. The trap was set, though which side had set it remained unclear. What happened next would determine whether justice prevailed or power protected its own. One thing was certain. When the truth finally surfaced, nothing on this base would ever be the same. The communications specialist returned to the DFAC. His face carried the expression of someone holding volatile information. 250 SEALs watched him approach. Conversations had resumed in hushed fragments, but every eye tracked his movement toward Master Chief Donovan. "I pulled the logs." He deliberately bypassed Kellner, addressing Donovan directly. "Building 7 equipment storage, 0430 to 0600. And 3 personnel accessed that area during the time frame." The specialist consulted his tablet. Petty Officer Wade Sutter at 0442, Lieutenant Derek Holt at 0515, and Chief Warrant Officer Pratt at 0531. Silence crashed through the DFAC like a detonation. Donovan turned slowly toward the 3 named individuals. "Interesting. No contractor access logged. But 3 personnel who are currently accusing her were present during the exact window in question." Kellner's jaw tightened. "There must be an error. She could have piggybacked, followed someone through a door." "With what credentials?" Donovan gestured toward Astra's badge. "Contractor cards don't open secure storage areas. The system would have logged any attempt. There's nothing." Then she found another way in. "Or she was never there." Donovan let the statement hang, and someone who was there planted that component to create a convenient scapegoat. The accusation landed with devastating precision. Operators throughout the DFAC began reassessing positions. The narrative that had seemed so clear moments ago now fractured into competing possibilities. Lieutenant Holt stepped forward, aggression masking uncertainty. "This is character assassination. We're commissioned officers. Our word carries weight. Weight that should be verified by evidence." Donovan did not retreat. "Right now, the only evidence we have points at you, not her." "This is ridiculous," Pratt's composure cracked. "We're being interrogated based on the word of a civilian and some access logs." Kellner had heard enough. The situation was spiraling beyond his control. Every second of delay allowed more questions to surface, more doubts to form, more witnesses to reconsider their assumptions. He needed to end this, now. "Enough." His voice cut through the murmurs. This woman is a security threat. The evidence was found on her person. We're detaining her immediately. He stepped toward Astra. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist with bruising force. You're coming with us, willingly or otherwise. Astra did not resist, did not pull away, simply stood with absolute stillness as his fingers dug into her forearm. Let go. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle. Or what? Kellner twisted her arm, forcing her to turn. His other hand reached for the restraints on his belt. You'll file a complaint? Report me to someone who cares? He yanked her arm upward, positioning for the cuff. The fabric of her sleeve tore. The sound was small, insignificant, lost in the ambient noise of the dining facility. But what emerged from beneath the ripped cotton was anything but insignificant, black ink on pale skin. A triangle containing 3 parallel lines. Below it, a serial number in military block font. 8 digits that corresponded to exactly one classified database in the entire Department of Defense. Kellner's grip loosened. His face cycled through confusion, recognition, and something that looked remarkably like terror. The DFAC went absolutely silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that follows artillery impact, the kind that precedes earthquakes. Someone's fork clattered against a metal tray. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Then another utensil fell, and another. 250 Navy SEALs stared at the tattoo on Astra Lennox's forearm. Most had no idea what they were seeing, but they understood they were witnessing something that would be discussed in whispered conversations for years to come. Master Chief Donovan rose from his seat. The movement was slow, deliberate, the posture of a man confronting something he had believed impossible. His face had gone pale. That insignia, his voice carried across the silent room. Shadow 6 was declared non-existent. Every member listed as killed in action. There were no survivors. Astra turned to face him. Her torn sleeve hung open, the mark visible to everyone in the room. There was one. The words detonated across 250 minds simultaneously. Donovan moved closer. His hand trembled slightly as he approached. 28 years of service, countless classified briefings, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. I signed those death certificates myself, 4 years ago. I authorized the file sealing. His eyes met hers, recognition dawning like sunrise over a battlefield. You're supposed to be dead. Supposed to be. Kellner finally found his voice. This is ridiculous. Anyone can get a tattoo. She probably found the design online. Copied it to give herself some kind of fake credibility. The denial sounded hollow, even to his own ears. Astra reached into her pocket, the one that had not contained the planted evidence. She withdrew a challenge coin, dark bronze patina, no visible markings on either face. She placed it on the nearest table, serial number facing up. Check the number against the one on my arm. Donovan leaned close. His lips moved silently as he compared the digits. 8 characters matching perfectly across 2 separate artifacts. When he straightened, his expression had transformed completely. The skepticism that had lingered beneath his recognition finally dissolving into absolute certainty. These serial numbers are from sealed records. His voice carried the weight of dawning comprehension. Numbers that only exist in one classified database. Numbers that I personally verified 4 years ago when I processed the casualty reports for Operation Carthage. The name struck the room like a physical blow. Operation Carthage. Every SEAL in the facility knew that name. Worst special operations loss in a decade. 9 operators killed when their position was compromised. A failure that had triggered investigations, reviews, and reforms across the entire special operations community. And now a woman bearing the insignia of that doomed unit stood in their dining facility, alive, undercover, accused of crimes by officers who suddenly looked very different in the harsh fluorescent light. So either I'm a ghost with access to the most classified personnel files in military intelligence, Astra said quietly, or I'm exactly who that tattoo says I am. Kellner's face had lost all color, his confident sneer replaced by the expression of a man watching his carefully constructed reality collapse. This proves nothing. You could have stolen those numbers, hacked a database, then verify. Astra's voice remained level, almost gentle. Call Naval Intelligence. Give them the serial. Ask who it belongs to. I'll wait. Donovan pulled out his phone, His fingers moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. "This is Master Chief Donovan, service number 74268. I need verification on a personnel serial from sealed records. Priority immediate." He read the 8 digits. Waited. The DFAC held its collective breath. 250 operators frozen in place, trays forgotten, meals cooling. Every sense focused on the drama unfolding before them. 30 seconds passed. 45. A minute. Then Donovan's face shifted, the last traces of doubt evaporating. "Understood. Yes, confirmed." He ended the call, turned to face the room with the gravity of someone delivering news that would reshape everything. "The serial belongs to Lieutenant Astra Lennox, Shadow 6 operative, declared killed in action during Operation Carthage. Status amended to disavowed effective 14 months ago." He paused. "Highest classification level, eyes only." The words landed like artillery shells across the silent dining facility. Lieutenant Holt backed away, his earlier bravado evaporating entirely. Sutter looked physically ill. His role in the framing suddenly illuminated in the worst possible light. Chief Pratt stood frozen, calculating the damage to his own position. And Kellner stood with the expression of a man watching his entire world restructure around a single impossible truth. Donovan turned to the MPs who still flanked Astra. "Stand down." The command carried absolute authority. "Release her immediately." The MPs stepped back without hesitation. The dynamics had shifted too dramatically for them to question orders from a Master Chief who clearly understood something they did not. Astra rolled her torn sleeve higher, let the full tattoo become visible. The unit insignia, the serial number, the mark of an organization that had never officially existed. "You." Kellner's voice emerged strangled. "You've been here for 11 days, watching us." "Yes." "Why?" Astra retrieved her coin from the table, turned it slowly between her fingers. 4 years ago, my unit was ambushed. 9 operators died. The mission was compromised from inside. Someone sold our coordinates to the enemy. She met Kellner's eyes. "I've spent every day since then hunting the source of that leak." Donovan's expression hardened. "You're saying we have a traitor in this command?" "I'm saying I've found him." Astra's gaze never left Kellner. "The question is whether he's going to confess voluntarily or whether I'm going to have to show everyone exactly what I found." Murmurs erupted throughout the DFAC, 250 operators processing the accusation, the implications rippling outward through professional networks and personal loyalties. Kellner's composure cracked completely. "This is insane. I'm a decorated officer, 15 years of service, multiple commendations. You can't just walk in here and—" "I can do exactly what needs to be done." Astra's voice cut through his protests. "I've spent 11 days documenting your communications, your schedules, your patterns. I know about the encrypted messages to external contractors. I know about the payments routed through offshore accounts. I know about the training data you've been selling." The temperature in the room plummeted. Sutter's eyes widened. "Sir, is this true?" "Of course not. She's lying, manufacturing evidence just like we—" Kellner stopped, realized what he had almost admitted. "Just like you manufactured evidence against me?" Astra tilted her head. "That component in my pocket, the false accusation of unauthorized access, the coordinated humiliation campaign designed to discredit a witness before she could testify." "I don't know what you're talking about." Seaman apprentice Theo Vance stood up. The movement drew attention across the DFS, a junior sailor rising in the middle of a confrontation between senior personnel. Career suicide by any conventional measure. But Vance had watched the entire morning unfold, had seen the setup, had witnessed the execution, had chosen silence when courage was required. Not anymore. "I do." His voice came out stronger than expected. "I saw Petty Officer Sutter plant the component. In this room, he bumped into her and put something in her pocket. I watched it happen." Every head turned. Sutter's face drained of color. "That's a lie. He's covering for her." "I have no reason to cover for anyone." Vance stepped into the aisle between tables, junior rank surrounded by senior personnel, career on the line with every word. "I joined the Navy to serve honorably, not to watch innocent people get framed." The testimony shifted the room's gravity. Corroboration from an unexpected source. Witness to the exact act that had nearly succeeded in destroying Astra's cover. Kellner turned on Sutter, You idiot. I told you to be subtle. The admission hung in the air, recorded by 250 pairs of ears, witnessed by an entire dining facility full of special operators. Kellner realized his mistake too late. That's not what I meant. I was speaking hypothetically. Save it. Donovan's voice carried the finality of a cell door closing. Lieutenant Commander Kellner, you are hereby relieved of duty pending investigation. Petty Officer Sutter, same applies. Lieutenant Holt, you will surrender yourself to the security officer immediately. You don't have the authority. I have exactly the authority I need. Donovan pulled his phone again. And Captain Ashford will confirm it the moment I reach him. As if summoned by the words, the DFAC doors opened. Captain Leonard Ashford entered with 2 security personnel flanking him. Gray hair cropped close, weathered face carrying the weight of 27 years of command decisions. Word had reached him fast. Word always traveled fast when officers accused of treason were involved. He surveyed the room, took in the tableau. Kellner pale and sweating, Sutter looking for exits, Holt attempting invisibility, 250 operators frozen in place, and a woman with a torn sleeve bearing an impossible tattoo. Someone want to explain why my base just became a crime scene? Donovan stepped forward. Sir, we have a situation that requires immediate secure communication with naval intelligence. Classification level above my clearance. Above your clearance? Ashford's eyebrows rose. Master Chief, you've got access to nearly everything short of nuclear codes. Yes, sir, and this is above that. Ashford's gaze shifted to Astra, studied her torn sleeve, the exposed tattoo, the serial number visible beneath the unit insignia. His expression flickered, recognition buried beneath decades of practiced neutrality. Kellner, Sutter, Holt, Pratt, Conference Room B now. Security escort. The command allowed no discussion. Master Chief, this woman, my office. Everyone else, finish your meals and clear out. This facility is secured for the next 2 hours. The DFACs began to empty. 250 operators filing out in organized chaos. Conversations already erupting. The story spreading through the command like wildfire through dry brush. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, share it with someone who loves a good military thriller. Drop a comment and tell me what you'd do in Vance's position. Would you speak up? And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. The ending is coming fast. Captain Ashford's office carried the weight of decades. Commendations lined the walls. Photos documented deployments across 3 continents. The desk held the organized chaos of active command. Ashford sat behind that desk now. Donovan stood at parade rest near the door. Astra occupied the single chair facing the captain. Shadow 6. Ashford spoke the words like a prayer for the dead. I attended the memorial service, watched the families receive folded flags. He leaned forward. And now you're standing in my facility, alive, accusing one of my officers of treason. Yes, sir. Why here? Why now? Why not go through official channels? Official channels have leaks. Astra's voice carried the exhaustion of 4 years spent chasing shadows. The original investigation was compromised. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted. Someone inside the system protected him every time we got close. So you went outside the system. I became the system. She touched her tattoo. They declared me dead, erased my records, made me invisible. And invisible operators can go places official investigators cannot. Ashford absorbed this. Calculated implications. If you're right about Kellner, this goes beyond my authority to resolve. We're talking federal charges, possible connection to larger networks. I know. Astra met his gaze. That's why I need 30 minutes. For what? Kellner's phone contains encrypted communications with his handlers. The moment he realizes he's truly exposed, he'll trigger a remote wipe. I need access to the base server room to intercept the data before it's destroyed. You want me to authorize an intelligence operation based on your word alone? I want you to authorize the protection of evidence that will convict a traitor. Astra's voice hardened. 30 minutes. If I'm wrong, you can hand me over to whatever authority you choose. But if I'm right, and that data disappears, the people who killed my unit stay free. More operations get compromised. More soldiers die. Ashford turned to Donovan. Your assessment. She's genuine, sir. Everything I've observed confirms operational training and clearance consistent with her claimed identity, and the evidence against Kellner is compelling. Ashford nodded slowly, a decision crystallizing. The server room requires dual authorization, my code and a second officer. He paused. Lieutenant Holt has the secondary credentials. Holt is compromised. I know, but his credentials still function, which means we need him to cooperate. Astra allowed herself a small, grim smile. I think I can motivate him. Conference room B held the smell of fear and stale coffee. Lieutenant Derek Holt sat alone at the long table. Sutter and Kellner had been separated into different holding areas, standard procedure for suspected conspirators. The door opened. Astra entered, sleeve still torn, tattoo visible. Behind her, Captain Ashford and Master Chief Donovan formed a wall of authority. Holt stood reflexively. Lieutenant, Ashford's voice carried no warmth, you're facing serious allegations. Conspiracy to frame a federal operative, obstruction of justice, potentially accessory to treason. Sir, I was following orders. Kellner said that planting evidence on civilians was acceptable, that harassment campaigns were standard leadership. Holt's mouth opened, closed. No sound emerged. Astra stepped forward. Here's what's going to happen. You have information I need. Specifically, your authorization codes for the base server room. You can provide them voluntarily and receive consideration when this goes to court. Or you can refuse, and the investigation focuses very specifically on your role in everything. I didn't know what Kellner was really doing, the classified stuff, the selling information. I thought it was just base politics. Then prove it. Astra's voice softened fractionally. Help us access the server before Kellner destroys the evidence. Show the investigators you chose the right side when it mattered. The calculation played visibly across Holt's face. Self-preservation warring with loyalty to a commander who had already implicated him. Self-preservation won. What do you need me to do? The server room occupied a reinforced section of Building 3, climate-controlled, electronically shielded, the digital heart of Naval Special Warfare Command. Astra moved through the door with Holt's codes validated. Donovan accompanied her. Ashford remained outside, coordinating the broader response. Rows of server racks hummed with perpetual activity. Blue lights flickered in patterns representing terabytes of sensitive data. The communication intercepts route through this terminal. Astra approached a workstation near the far wall. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with signals intelligence fluency. Kellner's been careful, encrypted everything, but encryption leaves traces. How long? 20 minutes if I'm fast, 30 if his protocols are better than expected. Donovan positioned himself near the door. Guard duty. Astra's fingers flew, code scrolling across screens, firewalls probed and bypassed. 12 minutes in, an alert flashed. He's trying to wipe remotely. Her voice stayed calm. Someone got word to him. Can you stop it? Already did. Mirrored the data to an isolated partition before the wipe command executed. A thin smile. He just deleted empty folders. 17 minutes. Data extraction complete. Astra removed a secure drive from the terminal. 4 years of communications, financial records, coordination with external handlers, names, dates, amounts. She exhaled slowly. Enough to convict him. Enough to find whoever else is involved. And your team? Does this explain what happened to them? Astra's expression flickered, the professional mask slipping for just a moment. It explains who sold us out. It explains how they knew exactly where we'd be and when. Her voice caught slightly. It doesn't bring them back. No. Donovan's voice softened. But it gives them justice. That counts for something. They exited the server room. Ashford waited in the corridor, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the conversation as they approached. Federal agents are en route, Naval Criminal Investigative Service, 2 hours out. He looked at the drive in Astra's possession. That data will need to be turned over for official analysis. Understood. Astra handed him the drive. But there's something else first. What? Kellner needs to know why this happened, who I am, what he destroyed. Her voice carried an edge beyond professional obligation. I want 5 minutes with him, supervised, no contact, just words. Ashford considered the request. 5 minutes. Donovan accompanies. Nothing physical. Agreed. Kellner looked smaller in the detention room. Bare walls, single chair. His uniform rumpled. His confidence eroded. He looked up when Astra entered, Donovan behind her, the door closing with institutional finality. Come to gloat? His voice carried the ghost of earlier bravado. Astra pulled a chair from the corner, positioned it 3 feet from where he sat. Do you remember Operation Carthage? The question caught him off guard. Everyone remembers Carthage. Worst special operations loss in a decade. 9 operators killed when their position was compromised. Do you remember how it was compromised? Kellner's expression flickered. A tell. Microscopic but visible. Intelligence failure. That's what the report said. Intelligence failure. Astra repeated the words slowly. That's what they told the families. That's what they told Congress. A sterile phrase that meant nothing and protected everyone. She leaned forward. But you know what really happened. Because you made it happen. I don't know what you're talking about. You sold the coordinates, routed the information through cutouts to a hostile contractor network, collected payment through offshore accounts. Astra's voice remained level. 9 people died because you wanted money. My team. My family. Kellner's composure cracked, the denials dying before they reached sound. You can't prove any of that. I already have. The data's been extracted. Every communication, every transfer. That evidence is inadmissible. Your lawyers will have their hands full explaining 23 separate felonies. Astra cut through his deflection. But I didn't come here to discuss legal strategy. Then why? Astra was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried something quieter and more devastating. I came to tell you their names. Kellner blinked. What? The people you killed. You probably never learned their names. They were just coordinates to you. Astra's eyes held his. Chief Warrant Officer James Reeves. He had a daughter. She was 6 years old when she stopped having a father. Stop. Sergeant First Class Maria Santos. Her mother received a folded flag and no explanation. I said stop. Petty Officer David Chen, Staff Sergeant Robert Huang, Lieutenant Junior Grade Patricia Walsh, Technical Sergeant William O'Brien, Senior Airman Jennifer Martinez, Master Sergeant Thomas Jackson, Chief Petty Officer Amanda Brooks. 9 names, 9 lives, 9 futures erased for money. Kellner's head dropped. His hands trembled. I didn't know it would. You didn't know betraying their position would get them killed? Astra's voice sharpened. You didn't understand that selling coordinates to hostile forces might result in an ambush? It wasn't supposed to be like that. They told me it was just intelligence exchange. Intelligence exchange. The contempt in Astra's voice could have stripped paint. Is that what you told yourself? When the families cried? When you watched colleagues mourn people you murdered? I didn't murder anyone. You gave their locations to people who did. Astra stood. That's the same thing. She walked toward the door, paused with her hand on the handle. I spent 4 years becoming a ghost to find you. 4 years of letting people like you dismiss me as worthless. She turned to look at him one final time. I wore your contempt like armor. Every insult brought me closer to this moment. Kellner had no response. Why? The word emerged broken. Why not just report me through channels? Because traitors only reveal themselves when they think no one is watching, and because 9 people deserved better than a compromised investigation that would let you walk free. She stepped through. Donovan followed. The door sealed behind them. Outside Building 3, the sun descended toward the Pacific. Golden light painted the base in colors too beautiful for a day marked by revelation. Captain Ashford stood with Donovan and Astra in a small courtyard. Federal agents confirm receipt of the evidence package. Initial analysis supports everything you documented. They're preparing warrants. For Kellner? For Kellner and 7 others. The network was larger than anyone suspected. Ashford paused. Your investigation may have uncovered one of the most significant breaches in special operations history. Astra absorbed this without visible reaction. What happens now? Now you have choices. The intelligence community wants to debrief you. Your disavowed status can be reversed. There's talk of commendation. Commendation. The word tasted strange. For spending 4 years pretending to be dead? for spending 4 years hunting a traitor that official channels failed to catch. Ashford's expression softened. You achieved what entire task forces could not. Across the courtyard, Seaman Apprentice Vance approached with tentative steps. Sir, he addressed Ashford, but his eyes moved to Astra. I needed to say something. Go ahead. Vance straightened. In the DFAC, when I saw what they were doing, I almost stayed quiet, almost protected myself instead of telling the truth. He met Astra's gaze. I don't know if my testimony mattered, but I wanted you to know that I'll never make that choice again. What you did, standing there and taking it, knowing what you knew, that taught me something about strength I'll carry forever. Astra studied the young sailor. Your testimony mattered. It corroborated the framing, established pattern of behavior, and it showed that not everyone was willing to watch injustice happen in silence. Vance's shoulders relaxed. Thank you for not giving up. Not everyone was against me. Astra glanced at Donovan. Some people see clearly even when others choose blindness. Seaman, your actions today will be noted in your service record, positively noted. Thank you, sir. Vance saluted and departed. Kids like that give me hope. Donovan's voice carried unexpected sentiment, willing to risk their careers for principle. The next hours passed in bureaucratic rhythm. Statements recorded, evidence cataloged, military justice grinding into motion with the deliberate pace of systems designed to crush mountains given sufficient time. Kellner was transferred to federal custody, hands secured, eyes hollow. The confident officer who had demanded a woman kneel before him now shuffled toward a future measured in prison years. Sutter broke quickly under interrogation. Named names, detailed operations, traded information for consideration that would prove insufficient. Holt's cooperation earned different treatment, still facing charges, but the kind that might result in discharge rather than incarceration. The reward for choosing the right side at the critical moment. Pratt faced administrative review, his role less clear, his future uncertain, the price of following without questioning. And through it all, Astra Lennox sat in interview rooms answering questions, providing context, filling gaps in a narrative that spanned 4 years and cost 9 lives. If you want to see how this ends, subscribe and turn on notifications. We're almost at the finish line. And drop a comment. What do you think happens next? I read every single one. Near midnight, the interviews concluded. Astra walked alone through the base, past darkened buildings and quiet barracks, past the DFS where everything had begun that morning, past the checkpoint where she had first entered 11 days ago. She stopped at the memorial wall near the main gate. Bronze plaques listing names of fallen warriors, operations that could never be discussed, sacrifices never publicly acknowledged. 9 names were not on this wall. Shadow 6 remained classified even in death. Their memorial existed only in sealed files, and the memories of those cleared to know they had ever existed. Astra pressed her palm against the cold bronze. I found him. The words emerged as whisper. It took longer than I promised, but I found him. No response came from the metal wall. None was expected. I don't know if this is enough. Justice feels smaller than I imagined. She closed her eyes. But it's something real. Footsteps approached behind her. Donovan. She recognized the cadence without turning. Thought I'd find you here. He stopped beside her, shoulder to shoulder facing the memorial. They're done with you for tonight. Ashford arranged quarters, real quarters. That's kind of him. It's deserved. Donovan was quiet for a moment. I meant what I said earlier, about justice counting for something. I know. And there's something else. He reached into his pocket, withdrew a coin, her coin, the one that had been logged into evidence. I had them release it back to you. Astra accepted the coin, cold metal warming in her palm. Shadow 6 was legendary, even in circles where most legends never get told. Donovan turned to face her. I'm honored to have met one of you. The others were better than me, faster, smarter. Her voice carried distant grief. I survived because I happened to be in the wrong position when the attack came. That's luck. Maybe. Or maybe you survived because you were meant to finish what they couldn't. He stepped back. Welcome back, soldier. Then he walked into the darkness, leaving Astra alone with the memorial. She stood there for a long time, watching stars emerge above the Pacific, listening to the distant sound of waves against the shore. The hunt was over, the traitor caught. Justice served through channels both official and invisible. In the morning, Captain Ashford would announce new security protocols, anonymous reporting channels, mandatory ethics reviews, the institutional response to institutional failure. Seaman Vance would receive a commendation for moral courage. The first of many recognitions in a career that would span decades. Master Chief Donovan would retire 6 months later, satisfied that his final act of service had been supporting truth when truth was inconvenient. Kellner would face trial. 23 federal charges, evidence so comprehensive that his lawyers would eventually recommend a plea deal. 30 years minimum. No possibility of parole for the first 20. Sutter would testify against his former commander in exchange for reduced sentencing. His Navy career over, his reputation destroyed, the price of following orders without questioning their source. The families of Shadow 6 would receive classified briefings, not public acknowledgement. That remained impossible, but private confirmation that justice had been served, that their loved ones had not been forgotten, that someone had kept hunting when the official investigation had failed. 9 families, 9 moments of closure that could never fully heal the wound but might allow it to finally scar over. But as Astra turned to leave, her phone vibrated. A message from an encrypted source. No sender identification, just coordinates and a time. Package intercepted, rendezvous Pier 7, 0300. Astra stared at the screen. The familiar pattern of operational communication, the kind that had defined her life before Shadow 6 was declared dead. Someone knew who she was. Someone wanted to meet. The investigation into Kellner was complete, but the network he had served remained largely unidentified, 7 others facing warrants. Unknown numbers still in shadow. The contractors who had received the intelligence, the handlers who had coordinated the payments, the architects of a system designed to profit from betrayal. She had told Ashford she wanted choices. Here was one. Astra pocketed the phone, looked once more at the memorial wall. Then she walked toward the base exit, toward Pier 7, toward whatever came next. The mission had changed, but it was not finished, not even close. The access logs for that night would show one anomaly, a 3-minute gap during shift change at the main gate, the kind of discrepancy that happened occasionally in complex security systems. No one would ever determine who erased those 3 minutes, or why. The story of Shadow 6 continued in places no official record would ever capture, written in actions rather than words, measured in justice delivered rather than medals awarded. And somewhere in the darkness between documented and denied, Astra Lennox moved toward her next objective. Because justice, as she had learned, was never loud. It was patient.
Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVB Story for more.